The Sephora Savings Event is coming. Are you ready to get
this and that? I don't gotta choose.
You're right. You don't. Shop all your favorite makeup, skincare, hair care, and fragrances for less. Find brands like Rare Beauty, Glow Recipe, Valentino, K18, and everything else you want on sale starting November 1st. The Sephora Savings Event is almost here. Shop the sale at Sephora and Sephora at Kohl's. Limitations apply. Must be a beauty insider. See terms at Sephora.com for complete details.
We have with us on the telephone Dan Schneider, Media Research Center's Vice President of Free Speech America. Welcome, Dan. It is so good to speak with you again.
James, it's always wonderful being on your show. It's the best radio you've got going in the country.
Thank you so much. I have to ask you, what is your reaction to big stories this week from two influential mainstream media giants, the Washington Post, the Los Angeles Times. The Los Angeles Times broke the water first. Their owner issued an edict, we're not endorsing a candidate. But what I found amazing about this is after the story broke and the angst started pouring out, he went to social media and posted his reasoning. He had asked his editorial board to come up with a side-by-side analysis of both candidates, their strengths, their weaknesses, and presumably offering what would happen to the country if either one of them were elected. His editorial board refused to comply with the owner of the publication, the man that saved them from going out of business. The Los Angeles Times has been in trouble. They are all there because this man purchased the newspaper. They refused. And so he said, fine, you guys don't want to do a side-by-side, do some good journalism, lay out your case for both candidates, we won't endorse. And immediately, one of the head of the editorial board resigned. Then yesterday, we get word that the Washington Post not going to endorse a candidate. Supposedly, this comes from Jeff Bezos, but they're blaming it on the publisher, William Lewis. He says the newspaper is going back to their roots of non-endorsement, and he makes a case historically of the years that they didn't endorse and when they did. But again, we have resignations, we have upset from Bob Woodward to Carl Bernstein to some of their columnists, Ruth Marcus, Eugene Robinson, and we've had some resignations on the Washington Post staff. What do you make of all this, Dan?
Oh, James, as far as people resigning, the more, the better from these former journalistic organizations. They're just nothing but political operatives today. But James, it's really important for your listeners to connect these dots. Jeff Bezos has been observing what has been happening to the wealthiest man on the planet, Elon Musk, during the Biden administration. Elon Musk's contract to provide internet connection was canceled by the Federal Communications Commission, the SEC, twice at the DOJ, and many other regulatory bodies. Suddenly, Elon Musk is being fined, investigated, probed for what he, has potentially done. The entire power of the Harris-Biden police state has come down on his head. And the second wealthiest man on the planet is thinking, well, could Trump do that to me too? I think the reason he's not endorsing through the Washington Post, his favorite newspaper, is because he has seen the writing on the wall. He knows who's going to win this race. And James, I'll tell you, my wife was on Amazon, and she was looking for party favors and decorations for an election night party that we're going to hold. And a great majority of everything that's available was labeled with Trump's name, not Kamala Harris. all Bezos has to do is see how things are selling on his own social media platform to know that Donald Trump's going to win this race. And he's now got to ingratiate himself with the next president of the United States, or else.
Wow. So this is, you think, self-interest from the owner of the Amazon Prime Washington Post?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what's going on. Again, because he has seen what the executive branch has, the hell that it has brought on Elon Musk's head. And he's not as tough as Elon Musk. So he doesn't want to have to suffer the consequences of having a president go after him. And of course, Donald Trump does not have a history of using government to attack his political opponents. That would be a fascistic thing. And we've seen Harris and Biden claim that he is a fascist, when in fact it's their administration that has used the power of the police state to attack their political opponents, not just through criminal prosecution, but also through the regulatory enforcement actions, fines, penalties. It's just gone on and on and on.
Now, you at Media Research Center, you guys have been doing great work for so many decades. You watch everything that goes on in media. Let me just ask you, a little ebonics there, let me ask you a question or two. You got CBS with this interview, 60 Minutes. They post one answer. Then when they publish the interview in its entirety, Kamala answers are different. One of her answers is different. It's not the word salad that was first introduced. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump now has said that he's looking for some kind of at least mitigation with this, with CBS. They're refusing to release the transcript. You had the debates. I don't have to tell you those debates were fingers on the scale, biased. The Waltz debate with J.D. Vance, with the one-sided fact-checking from ABC's journalist. And you've had the blatant finger on the scale all the way. What do you think the impact of the media performances that we have seen will be with elections going forward?
Well, James, the founder and president of my great organization, Brent Bozell. He founded MRC to show the public that the media is biased. And this is all the way back in 1987. Back then, the confidence in the media was up in the 80 percentile. And I remember listening to this brand new guy on the radio named Rush Limbaugh, who was telling everybody that Sam Donaldson's biased. And I was like, thank God there's somebody here who sees this. And then I remember hearing Rush say, and now there's this new organization founded by Brent Bozell. I was so excited to hear about this new organization. Well, today, confidence in the media has plummeted. We're down below 30% nationwide. And, of course, most of those are Democrats. So when the media does these things like ABC, right before the presidential debate, that David Muir hosted of ABC, 100% of the coverage about Kamala Harris was positive. 93% of the news about Trump was negative. And the American public is kind of shrugging its shoulders saying, yeah, par for the course. The news media has lost its mojo. The American public knows what it's up to. The media is out to crucify Donald Trump, and the American public is not going to have anything to do with it ever again. So, yeah.
Right. And I mistakenly said, by the way, that was J.D. Vance. That was the CBS fiasco with J.D. Vance, the ABC with Donald Trump with their one-sided fact-checking.
Right.
It just goes on and on. So let me ask you this question. I maintain that following this election cycle, any Republican nominee should just refuse to go on any of the 3-4 networks to do a debate. Just refuse. There are plenty of other outlets for these candidates to go. They don't have to go on an ABC, a CBS, or an NBC where you know what's coming. Why do it?
It used to be that we had this ridiculous election commission that was run by the same people literally for decades. And, the Democrats were highly partisan and the Republicans were elitists who just wanted to be accepted by their peers at the dinner parties. And they would always steer everything in that direction. Donald Trump put an end to that. Literally, He ended this election commission. But still, the RNC under Ronna Romney McDaniel was still signing these contracts with these ridiculous networks. Of course, then we saw that she had her own contract to go on one of the, to be a professional commentator on one of these networks that, of course, was canceled because they couldn't even handle her. But we have got to have an RNC that will say no more. We are not going to sanction any of these debates with these radical so-called journalists, operatives. We've got to have, but we do need debates. The American public has got to see their party candidates battle it out. We have to have a battle of ideas again. The left today, and that includes legacy media, they're trying to make this whole election about personality. Do you like Kamala Harris's nice smile, or do you hate the guy with horns on his head? That's how they frame everything. We've got to have an actual election about issues, and an election that's focused on what kind of future does our country want, not a campaign of personality.
Let me leave you with a suggestion with this, Dan. What is the most famous presidential debate in American history?
Well, the Lincoln-Douglas debates. Those were amazing debates. If you've ever read them, back and forth and back and forth. These titans, these intellectual titans, fighting it out for what our country should look like, what it should be. Should we have slavery or should we not have slavery? What's the role of the individual in society and government's role in the individual life? Those Lincoln-Douglas debates were fabulous.
And you know what? Guess who wasn't there? No media.
James.
It was two candidates on a platform with each other with defined rules. You get to speak for an hour and a half or an hour, I think. Then the other person gets to speak, and then it goes back to the first person, ends with the next person. They didn't have to speak in sound bites. They could express their ideas. They stood up before the public and talked with each other and duked it out with each other with no biased media there. I think that is a formula that could work even in this day and time. Here are your two candidates. This one goes first. This one goes next. This one goes. That one goes. Debate over. What do you think?
I think you're the most genius political analyst out there, James. I think that's wonderful. That's exactly what we should be doing. And to anybody in the public who says, well, that sounds boring to me, they're an uninformed voter to begin with. This is exactly what we need, James. We should co-author an op-ed arguing to the American public that we should demand this. That's what we should do.
I am with you on that. Dan, thanks so much. Such a pleasure. Tell people how they can find Media Research Center, please.
Well, of course, our mothership is the Media Research Center. So you can find us at mrc.org. And there are two different divisions. There's the Newsbusters division. So you can go to newsbusters.org. And I oversee our Free Speech America division. So that's mrcfreespeechamerica.org.
Thank you so much, Dan. We'll look forward. Your prediction on the election before you leave.
I think it's going to be Trump by 2 to 3 points. That's a landslide. I've seen Kamala Harris and how desperate she's getting, and I'm seeing Donald Trump and how optimistic he is, and they both are looking at their internal polling. The rest of us don't see, and I think their actions reflect what's going to happen.
Wow. Love it, Dan. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you. Dan Schneider, my friends.